What's going on, everybody? Sean Daniel from Guitar Control here. And today is a very special day because we are learning how to master the chords that you need to be successful at guitar. The primary chords, the basic guitar chords that you need to know. And you might want to click on that link in the description because it'll have chord charts. So if you're just trying to memorize all of them, there's only going to be 6 of them. It's good to kind of have the diagram with you. But basically, we're talking about 6 chords. A lot of times we'll get a question like, how many chords do I need to know to play guitar? Some people will be like, you only need 3 chords in the truth. That's a very hippie answer. I don't like that answer. I like 6. 6 chords is a bare minimum. And the reason that is any key has 6 main guitar chords that you have an option to play. And we're going to go through all of this, and we're going to learn these in one key. So by the end of it, if you learn these 6 chords, and you have a capo to switch keys, you can essentially play any song, a version of any song, that doesn't have a key change. So we're also going to talk about different voicings and stuff like that, but really quick, just the chords that we're going to learn are going to be the 6 main chords in the key of C major. You might already know these. You'll see these in millions, if not tens of millions, if not billions of songs. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor. 6 chords, that's it. 3 major ones and 3 minor ones. Now, if you noticed, I kind of went through and did them in somewhat of an alphabetical order starting on C. C, D, E, F, G, A. We're skipping a B. We can get more into that later. But again, these are the 6 ones. We're going to master them, all right? So let's start off with the boss chord right here, C major. Everyone's favorite go-to standby chord, all right? Now, we're going to learn a fingering for this, okay? So we're going to start with your ring finger. You're going to put it on the 3rd fret of the A string. And make sure you try to get your finger as close to the fret bar as possible without touching it. If you have it backed off, it might be kind of buzzy. If you have it right over the fret, it might be buzzy too, right? So we want to kind of get the best tone out of that string. Now, that's fine and simple for one single finger, but once you start getting the other fingers involved, you might have to kind of compromise until your reach is a little bit better, but don't worry about it, it'll come, right? So we've got the 3rd fret on the A string, ring finger. 2nd fret on the D string, middle finger. That G string is going to be open, and then the 1st fret of the B string with your pointer finger, okay? So you can strum all, like the bottom 5 strings if you want. I would say that's probably the best way to do it. You can strum all 6 strings if you want. Whatever works, all right? We're really only playing 3 different notes to get this one chord, even though we're playing 6 strings. If I just went through and named all the notes, we've got a low E, 3rd fret on the A string is a C, our root note. That's what this chord is named after, C major. 2nd fret on the D string is a E, G, C, and E. So all different combinations of C, E, and G, which in future videos we might talk a little bit more about how to make different combinations of C, E, G. Any way you can combine those 3 notes is a valid C chord. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do it like this. You can do it like this. You can do it like this. All over the place. We're focusing on this first. This is a C major chord. It's not the C major chord, which again, on your way to mastering this guitar, these are things you're going to want to be kind of wary of, right? So you can kind of see in the diagram that really it tells you where to put your fingers on which frets, that little chord box that you can see, right? So this is going to be the first chord we're going to do. Now, the note after C in the alphabet, and also in the C major scale, where all these notes are coming from, is going to be D. So the 2nd chord, the 2 chord we could call it, is going to be D minor, okay? Now real quick, just a cursory definition between the difference of major or minor is major chords sound kind of happy. Minor chords kind of sound sad. Again, rudimentary thing. You can get as much into the theory behind it as you want, but right now we're talking about just learning how to play these different chords and starting to switch between them. So the 2nd chord is going to be D minor. All right, your pointer finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the high E string. Your pinky or your ring finger, doesn't really matter, whichever's more comfortable, is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B string. Your middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the G string. And D, the open D string, is the root note. So we want to hit that, maybe the bottom 4 strings, the highest 4 strings. Again, if you actually get maybe the bottom 5 strings, it's not a big deal. If you get just the bottom 3 strings, not a huge deal. focusing on where you actually strum is something that's going to get better over time. You just want to kind of go for that general sound. D minor, the 2 chord. I'll come back to this in a minute. The 3 chord, everybody's favorite, E minor. Why is it everybody's favorite? Is because it's like the easiest chord to play. You just have to hold down the 2nd fret of the A string and the 2nd fret of the D string. And then strum all 6, okay? So you kind of want to bunch these 2 fingers together. Now you'll see on the chord charts that it's telling you to use specific fingers. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but whichever fingers you can get to cooperate are what you want to use. There's no wrong way to play it. As long as you get these 2 frets down, you're golden, all right? And like I said, in a minute we're going to get to why you might want to use different fingers for different chords. But as far as a chord chart goes, it's got to tell you some kind of way to use your different fingers, right? So that is the 1 chord, C major, the 2 chord, D minor, the 3 chord, E minor, the 4 chord, F. Now a lot of people are like, F major, this is where I just check out, because maybe you see a chord chart looks like this. Bar chord, craziness, right? Well, we're actually going to simplify that a little bit, and we're going to start by making that C major chord that you've already mastered, because we talked about it 2 minutes ago, and of course you've mastered it in 2 minutes because you probably paused this, mastered it, went on to the next chord. C major, if we just take your front 2 fingers and move them down a string, that's a F major, okay? Now again, a lot of times it's used in bar chord form. The thing about this is we don't really need all 6 of these strings to get this. Hitting a bar chord is really tough at first. It sounds awesome when you get it right, but just kind of like a way to cheat it until your hands are ready to start playing these bar chords is right here. And it's really not even cheating because this is technically an F major chord. C chord, keep your pointer finger there, move your front 2 fingers down a string. So I've got 1B, 2G, 3D. Now the thing about this is you have to be a little bit selective in which ones you hit. If you hit the bottom 4 strings, that's fine. If you hit all 6 strings, it's probably not going to sound as good. So that's where you might want to just start kind of working on being selective with your strum, whether you're using your thumb, whether you're using a pick, whatever, doesn't matter. Optional change for this F chord. If we take that C chord again, right? Move your middle finger down a string and your pinky right behind your ring finger. So now I have 3A, 3D, 2G, 1B. This is a fuller sounding F chord. In fact, this is what an F bar chord would look like if I just didn't play the lowest and highest string, the middle 4 strings. And again, if you get that high E string in there, that's fine, that's better. The middle 4 strings, something like that. The bottom 5 strings, something like that. You might even prefer the sound of the bottom 5 strings in this F major chord. Okay, so recap. Chord 1, C major. Chord 2, D minor. Chord 3, E minor. Chord 4, F major. Chord 5, G major. The people's chord, right here. It's a good one. Middle finger 3E, pointer finger 2A. Now, if you want to just stop right here, if maybe kind of this reach that we're going to talk about in a second, where your ring finger or pinky goes to the bottom string, 3rd fret, is a little bit too much, you can just use just these first 2 strings and then strum the lowest 5 strings with your ring finger or pinky. It just kind of adds a little bit of extra special sauce on top of that G chord. But if that's too much of a reach, if you're just starting out, just try to grab these 2 diagonal, right? So 3E, 2A. You're just down a string, back 1, and try to make sure you're getting good tone from each one. You can always check the tone of each string by just hitting it individually. Okay? Another important thing to remember, just because you're only holding down, you're only fretting 2 strings, when you strum them, doesn't mean those are the only 2 you're playing. The open strings are really helping us out in a lot of these chords, okay? So, there's G major, the 5 chord, and finally the 6th chord, A minor. Okay, we're gonna come back to all these and kind of talk about switching between them in different orders, but I just wanted to do a recap of all the 6 main chords first, and we're gonna end on this A minor. Now, if you did that E minor, with your middle finger and ring finger, move that guy down a string and put your pointer finger on the 1st fret of the B string. Open A, 2G, or open A, 2D, 2G, 1B, open E. Again, this is one of those ones you can get all 6 strings if you want. I personally think it sounds best if you just get the highest 5 strings. All right, so if that was kind of fast for you, definitely take your time and work on just getting some of these just good by themselves. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor. 6 main chords, okay? So what I really want to talk about though is mastering these chords in a way that you can switch from one to another, because generally that's how songs work. The chords change. Some songs you can just kind of hang on forever, over and over again. That's cool in its own way. It gets kind of boring. So I just remember that I really struggled a lot when I first picked up a guitar, switching between chords in a timely manner. So what you want to work on is start to visualize where maybe some common fingerings exist, okay? And we're going to start with a C major to an A minor. That first chord to the 6th chord. This is pretty common in a lot of songs. You might see a lot of chord progressions, groupings of chords that go from a C major to an A minor, all right? Now, the important thing to think about, if you just really take your time, be thoughtful about it, and visualize the difference between this and this, only one finger changes, okay? If you take that A minor, let's start on this A minor again. Remember, your pointer finger's on 1B, your ring finger's on 2G, and your middle finger's on 2D. If you just lift your ring finger up, another thing if you're first starting that's pretty funny, if you like look at your hand and tell yourself to like lift your ring finger, you might lift up your pointer finger. It's like the weirdest thing when you're first starting out. When your hand doesn't cooperate, it's like, come on, who's in charge here? Yeah, so lift up your ring finger and swing it to 3A. So that one finger is responsible for making this a C major or A minor, okay? Now that might be easier said than done, really kind of getting these two to behave and kind of plant there while you pivot on there. But as long as you're thoughtful, this move, ring finger 2G, ring finger 3A, is gonna get easier and easier. You can even just train it, boom, 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 like that. But these kind of thoughtful patterns of recognizing how to change a chord using the context of a song, instead of just practicing C, D, E, F, G, A. That's not musical at all. That's just kind of like an exercise, which is a good exercise to do, for sure. But again, we want to get you playing songs. So, being able to find common fingerings for voicings is a really important thing. So now let's talk about a C major chord to a G major chord, okay? Now, if you look at my hand, this is a lot different than the thing we just did. The cool thing about the C major to A minor was it's just one finger variation. As difficult as that may be at first, conceptually, it's not a big change. If you look at a C major to a G major, like we learned it, every finger is going on its own journey, okay? Now, that can be really difficult, especially moving them all at once. At first, you might be like, okay, I got to get from this C to this G. I'm going to start here. I'm going to do this and do this. And that's fine. And then go back and then do that. Sometimes you might want to start at the top like this. Okay? But what I'm here to tell you to do is think of this G major, and in your mind's eye, think that you just need to hold on the 3rd fret of the E string, the 2nd fret of the A string, and then optionally the 3rd fret of the high E string. Doesn't matter what fingers you use. So if you're coming from a C chord, the easiest way to do that is move this C chord up a string. Maybe put your pinky on there, optionally. Now, this is a different fingering for a G major, but it's still the exact same notes. There's literally no difference between this and this. You're gonna get the exact same sound as long as you're fretting the notes correctly. So, whenever I'm changing, most times when I'm changing from a C major to a G major, I just do that. Because if you look at the efficiency of my hand doing this, it barely looks like my hand is moving. Again, easier said than done, for sure, but this is a goal that you're going to want to have, is to be really efficient with your changing so you can, you know, worry more about the rhythm and kind of enjoy yourself a little bit more instead of having to maneuver all your fingers to different frets and stuff. So that's an important kind of distinction to make. Much more efficient than this to this. See how fast I have to move my hand to get from a C to a G instead of just a C to a G? And then if I want to go from a G major to an A minor, it's really similar to going to a C major because, again, there's just that one move that puts it together. So I really think that this is kind of the key to mastering the primary chords in guitar, is finding these commonalities between chords that you're switching to. Even like let's take a C major to an E minor, the 1 to the 3 chord, the first chord to the 3rd chord, okay? Now, what I want to think here is like, all right, I know I've got my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. I know to get to an E minor, I've got to make it look like this. So maybe I'm going to lead with my middle finger to get it where it needs to go, and then just kind of get my ring finger to get behind it, okay? That's why it's really important that maybe you click on that link and get that chord chart so you can kind of see, and then the more you look at those 6 chords, the more you'll kind of have it burned in your mind, the frets that your fingers need to be on. Okay? So it's really just kind of having your middle finger take the lead here, get from that C major up into an E minor, and then form the rest of that chord around your middle finger, C to E. And then now, here's an interesting example of maybe where you'd want to use this G, the first G chord that we did, instead of the one where we altered a C chord to make a G chord. Now if I'm going from an E minor to a G major, all I can do is think again of my middle finger as a lead finger to just get to that 3rd fret. And then everything kind of comes into play around that. If I have my middle finger and I move it to the 3rd fret of the E string, I haven't even thought about my pointer finger. It's just been lagging behind, and it lags behind in the perfect spot where it needs to get to the 2nd fret on the A string. E minor to G major, okay? Now again, you can start to get back to that C major if you want to. If you're still worried about efficiency and you want to go back to a C, you can move a G major down a string and just get the low part of a C major. Another important distinction about when you're just learning all these chords is you don't always have to hit all the strings in a chord. To get a good sound, all you need is just kind of like a semblance of that chord sometimes. Like here, I'll play the same few chords, like C major to E minor to G major. I'm strumming all 6 strings. C, E minor, G major. Now I'm going to do the same voicings, but I'm only going to hit like the lowest 3 strings. C to E to G. I'm getting a different sound, but it's still very much a C major, E minor, G chord progression. Now I don't even have to use the whole shape. I can just use pieces of it. So playing pieces of chords as compared to full chords is something I wish I would have known when I started out, because I always thought it was like, I gotta make a C chord, I gotta get the whole thing in there, I gotta go to D minor, I gotta get my hands off it and try to rearrange them in a way that makes sense. So, all of these chords is gonna be an efficient way that works for you. It doesn't really matter what fingerings you use, what fingers you use. Again, the chord charts will have a specific number for which finger to use just to kind of get you started as just a general base, you know, like put your pointer finger here, your middle finger here, your ring finger here. By no means does that mean that is a set in stone way that you have to do it. Whatever's more comfortable for you, whatever you feel like is an efficient way for you to move your hand, because everybody's hands, everybody's fingers are different, is going to be the way that you want to do it. But aside from learning the shapes of a guitar when you're first starting out, it is super important to be thoughtful about the notes that you're hitting and then how you change chords. That's going to be the best way for you to build up speed and be able to play a song in time, because again, it's super hard to change some of these chords at first. Like, I think a lot of players who have played for a while take for granted how hard it is to kind of just move through chords like that. So again, start thinking about different connections between chords, maybe where you can plant your fingers, and then just start switching between them. And if you have any questions or comments, please hit us up in the comment section and make sure to subscribe to the Guitar Control channel, because we'll have a bunch more videos coming for you soon. Thanks a lot. So if you've mastered those 6 primary chords and you want to learn more, you're in luck, because we have different videos all around us that you can click on from myself, other great guitar control teachers, and definitely they'll be of great value to you as you continue to master the guitar.